Alrighty, what's up, folks? Today I've got a little bit of a cautionary note for you about making sweeping changes to your life in the pursuit of being a happy human being. Because when we get plugged into something that makes it apparent that there are options for us, that happiness is possible, there's a tendency to get pretty excited about that. And in getting excited, we can sort of overextend ourselves, we can set ourselves up in an unsustainable direction, and then when we hit backlash, we got nothing to hang on to. We end up right back where we started, right? So there's a story about that I learned in the course of my practice that I've kind of used as a guideline over the years, and it's really helped me. And it's the story of George Fox, who was a Quaker teacher, and William Penn, who was an English gentleman after whom Pennsylvania is named, actually. And William Penn sort of became a part of the fellowship that George Fox was a leader in, and he got excited, and he became a Quaker. But he was an English gentleman, and at the time, it was customary for English gentlemen to wear weapons, particularly swords. And the Quakers are pacifists, so he sort of was troubled by the conflicts between his new beliefs and his old customs. And so he went to George Fox about this, and he asked what he should do. Should he wear the sword? Should he not wear the sword? And George Fox advised him to wear his sword for as long as he could. And I think that's the perfect advice, because it's very easy to be excited about being persuaded. You hear the argument, and the argument rings true for you, and so you decide to act on the argument. But there's a difference between knowing a thing and really understanding a thing. When you know a thing, when you've been persuaded, when the evidence is there, and intellectually you grasp this thing, there's still some distance between that knowledge and who you are. But when you really understand something, it changes who you are. And the advice that William Penn is getting there from George Fox is to wait until your new knowledge has penetrated deeply enough into you that it's intolerable for you to behave in a way that's incompatible with it. So, the new convert, in his zeal, may want to adopt all the mannerisms of the Quakers, but hey, let's just hold off until you really have internalized this enough that you are a Quaker at heart, and then you won't want to wear that sword, and you won't have to ask the question. I think that's perfect, right? We should always wait until it is not... until you don't have the feeling of being deprived in giving something up, right? Rather than giving things up, we let things go, and they just fall out of our life. And so for me, the big example of that is I'm a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian for a decade now. I have understood the arguments for vegetarianism within a Buddhist framework for at least 15 years. And I grew up around people who were Buddhists and were vegetarians, and were happy to explain that to me, what that meant to them. But there was at least 5 years where I was meditating regularly, and really trying to improve my life from within a Buddhist framework, and still ate meat. And then one day I was meditating, and something clicked, ding, and I went, oh, that's why that's important. Oh, I get that. And it has to do with some minutiae of Buddhist doctrine. And while that's important to me, it's not actually important to me that I convince anybody of it, right? So I decided to sleep on that. I woke up and I went, I guess I'm a vegetarian now. And I've never intentionally consumed meat since then, and it's never been a problem. There's no sense of loss in that. I grouse sometimes because I really miss carne asada burritos, but that's a cultural thing, and I like to grouse. That's just... sometimes complaining for me is an expression of joy in my heart. But really, there's no loss. And so there's no temptation. There's no desire for me to, I have to hold myself back, otherwise I'm going to eat this meat. It's there. I can acknowledge, like, oh yes, that smells delicious. I bet you're having a great time eating that. There's no emotional strife associated with it. And that's really important, because if it was a challenge for me, then probably the last decade, somewhere in there, I would have had to either make sort of erect some emotional barrier to hold my behavior in check, right? So a lot of people do that with disgust. They declare that meat is disgusting and they tell themselves that story over and over and over again, and they can arrest their behavior in that way. But changing your behavior through disgust is sort of like trying to do surgery with a hatchet. Like, you might get the job done, but it's not going to be fun for the patient, and the outcome's not going to be that great. And that, for me, is what it looks like when I encounter people who are using disgust to manage their behavior. Whereas for me, it's like, yeah, obviously meat's delicious. Obviously, you're going to have a good time. And no, I don't actually want anything to do with that. And it's not a problem for me or for anybody else. So I can still go to a barbecue, hang out, enjoy the social experience, because I know that I'm adhering to my project, other people are adhering to theirs, and everybody can pursue their happiness as it appears to be the best course for them, right? And this engages with another issue that I just want to briefly touch on, which is that small changes are generally more sustainable. You want to make the minimum change that is compatible with your best understanding of what's going to promote your happiness, because you need to make that small change habitual, drive that down into the core of your being so that there's no question about that anymore, and then you look for the next change. If you try to change everything all at once, as soon as one bit of that change falls apart, then your willingness for the whole project's going to fall apart, and you're going to end up right back where you started. So, change happens incrementally. It's like, it's like a kid growing over time. If you don't see the kid, but for every 6 months, it seems like they're just exploding. But if you see them every day, it's like, that's the same kid, which is why we need to document. But smaller changes are more sustainable. And that's basically it. So really, the message is, whatever you see in your life that you think to yourself, maybe this isn't what I want to be doing, maybe this isn't exactly promoting my happiness, I see these other people over there that seem to have it together and they're not doing this thing, reflect on that. Really pay attention to that. Really see what's going on there, and see if over time it becomes clear to you that that's not a thing that's promoting your well-being, and then let it go. But if you try to give it up before you have the understanding, it's going to be challenging. You're going to feel deprived, and it's going to sap your willingness to continue making the incremental progress that you need to make in order to be a happy human being. So, that's it. Keep your sword.